Okay, so with a QMS, a quality management system, the first thing, let's say, is based on the foundation concept created by Total Quality Management. The first thing you must have is quality planning. It may sound so simple. Oh, Dr. Ting is always talking about planning, planning this, planning that. Yeah, but that is the core essential. If you don't plan, you don't have a baseline to be basing your results on later. If you don't have an aim, it's just basically you are just not having any way forward, and then based on what you want and based on what you get, you can compare. So if you don't even establish what you want, how are you going to know what you get is what you want, you see? So I think that concept is very important. So you must have a proper quality management plan for a QMP. The QMP is used very generally from industry to industry, but for us, we like to use PQP, Project Quality Plan. So it is a guideline for a complete, like you're actually creating a whole complete system. Okay, so for QMS, you're creating a QMP or PQP. This PQP will be an entire organization. I mean, like it will talk about the entire planning for your project. From processes to procedures to resources of implementing quality management for your project. That is quality plan. I mean, like we do. So I will have a separate PQP. What should be in the PQP in another recording later on. But generally, the concept is you need to set up this particular system. You need to set up the planning. Is to set up QMS. You see, and in this QMS, in this system that you have, number one, the quality plan, it will set down a few things. It will set down the it will definitely have a manual, a manual for quality practices. And here, this is also again based on work breakdown structure. So from your work breakdown structure, you'll be creating a manual, okay? And this manual is going to be your quality plan. And in this manual, you will talk about the different activities. So it's like this umbrella of quality management that you have. So under this work package or umbrella, you will have smaller activities. And each of these smaller activities, what are the work method? What are the system to, what are the steps or work method to complete them? And then, or the flow of work to complete them. And from the flow of work, what are the specific requirement that you're putting down for those work processes. It doesn't have to be all the processes you have, all the steps that you have a requirement. Some of them are just general processes, some of the general steps. But you also put in resources requirement. Like for this activity, your resources must be of this standard of certain certifications or certain testing certificates and must be produced and provided for. So those are that particular activity. So activity with the resources, activities, the steps, the flow, from the flow, the resources requirement, and then from the resources requirement, we also put down the testing requirement, the experiment requirement, the checking requirement, the do's and don'ts requirement, what is yes and no, and what are your plan B's if it fails, So we put that down under our quality plan, our PQP, our manual. And this manual, it's not only, like a lot of people think that PQP is like the work method statement. So you're doing a detailed procedures of how the work should be done. And that is not it is to it. Remember, I say that yes, if you want to talk about work statement, basically our work breakdown structure is already quite a good way to present the work method already. But this is talking about besides the steps of carrying out the work in certain manners and certain flow that is right, that is the procedurally right in order to achieve that quality objective. So you must have that quality objective first in the processes, and in that, with that quality processes, when you do your quality work method statement, you are looking into the flow of work that meets that particular requirement. How sometimes, when we build something, we cannot just have short time, for example. So in the work processes, if we do A, B, C is the right processes to produce the result, then you have to go by ABC. It's just like when I make a cake, for example, if I beat my butter and my sugar, it must be beat together to fluffy. And then when you put that requirement of fluffy, what do you mean by fluffy? What do you mean by the concrete is up to certain fluidity, you see? So you must list it down. What do you mean by that? And then if you say the fluidity, or how soluble it is, or how the consistency of it, you need to have certain testing, or you need to have certain machine to test it, or ruler to measure it, slump test, then you need to specify that, you see. And when you say that this is the right thing for these procedures, you must do these procedures first, this and this must combine first, and then we put in the egg to make it, a white. If the word white, is the requirement, then what do you mean by white? How white is white, And then same goes with other procedures like formwork, like bar bending. So we will, the procedures, first of all, the procedures have to be right, you see. So if we don't go like, I just chapalang throw everything in, and try to beat up a cake, it will sure fail one, you see. There are a lot of things in construction, in daily life, in a lot of procedurally, we have to follow the flow. If we don't follow the flow and give it enough time within each of the flow, it's going to be very difficult for you to get the end result that you want. So if you want to build a cake, or not build a cake, or bake a cake, make a cake, you need to know the procedures. So these procedures you also attach with the requirement, the setting down of the resources. You want to use certain butter, you use certain sugar, you want to use certain bananas, so it's like you need to be sure about the resources. It has to be beaten with some a machine with a bowl, then it has to be a bowl machine. It cannot be just any hand mix machine. Hand mix method, you cannot do that, see? So again, I hope you can see that in our PQP, in our manual, you've got to list down your work breakdown and then go through the procedures of work according to a standard procedures, according to the right procedures, not just standard. Standard may not be right, okay? According to the right procedures, and then attaching our resources and listing down what is required from the resources, what is required from the work process. Is there any part of it that requires certain checkpoint, whole point, to make sure that you don't proceed to the next section if it doesn't happen? So that is the flow of the quality manual, or a flow of the quality plan. And with activities, that's a very practical way of doing things. If you need to go and write a quality plan, this is what you need to do. That's what I'm telling you, the steps of doing it, a quality plan. But also, you also need to understand what are the quality policy. Overall, you need to understand the quality policy of the organization, that's for sure. You need to understand the standards that you're using. Are you using international standard? Are you using code? Are you using Malaysian standards? Are you using Euro? Are you using British? Are you using American? Are you using Australian codes? Are you using which regulatory bodies? Which authorities body requirement? So you need to know all this first, and then from there it's a list of procedures, then list of what is the steps of doing it, and then listing it down together with the resources and the requirement from the resources, and that's how you complete the PQP. You can do that in a flow chart manner. You can do that in a table manner, with different columns listing down the requirement and how you check it. And if you check it and you realize that it's not right, what can you do? Go to what steps? It can be that kind of a table format. For me, if the activity is quite simple, you can actually do it with flow chart. If it's not too complicated, you can do it with flow chart. I will also show you some flow charts later on. Okay, so this is what it's all about. And your quality requirement also has to be in relationship with time, your sequencing activities, because activity sequencing is part of network. My network is also showing you the sequencing, and sequencing is basically part of the whole system of procedures